Hello, Jack Olmstead, GMO Free News. I'm here today with Scott Smith. He's with the Water Defense. How are you doing today, Scott?
Hey, very good, Jack. Thanks for having me on.
Can you talk about how you learned about the Flint water crisis?
Yeah, first of all, I'll explain a little background. Water Defense is a nonprofit organization founded by Mark Ruffalo to preserve and protect the fundamental human right to clean water and know what's in your water, because we believe every human being should have an access to clean water and to know what's in the water. And I am the Chief Technology Officer and Investigator for Water Defense. And I have been in over 60 disasters for Water Defense. And, in the Flint, this is specific to Flint. And in all the disasters I've been in, I have yet to see people bathing and showering in the levels of some of these dangerous carcinogenic chemicals. And to put it into context, we've even tested, compromised water in Pennsylvania where there's been fracking and some spills, and we have never even seen these kinds of levels, let alone these chemicals in water where there's known fracking spills. So that will better help you understand the context of the gravity of the situation in Flint.
So how did you learn about the Flint water crisis?
Well, with my background, and when there's a disaster or contamination event, we usually get contacted at Water Defense, and that what we do is we go into, we learned about it, we evaluate the situation, and what we do is we go into communities in an objective way and let the data lead the dialogue and do testing. So we learned about the Flint water crisis. We started monitoring it. We started looking to see what the state was doing, what the EPA was doing, and then we decided that we wanted to go in and use a variety of water testing technology techniques and EPA protocols to figure out what was in the water. And why we went is that we could only find evidence of testing for copper and lead, and we wanted to truly get an independent lab report that was not affiliated with the state of Michigan.
So you were in Flint January the 29th and the 30th to conduct these tests. Give us a timeline. Did you know about the Flint water crisis in 2015? Or was it the barrage of national media late December, early January that got your attention?
Well, we were generally aware of it because we had been into Detroit during the Detroit water crisis, with all that before. We were generally aware, but what really escalated our attention to the red alert level was in early January when it was elevated quite a bit. And then I started really watching what was going on with the testing. And when we looked at Water Defense, when we saw what was going on with the testing, we decided that it was in the best interest of the community of Flint for us to go and investigate and see what we could find with our independent lab analysis.
Did you check out the Mark Edwards, the Flint water study group data?
Yes. And there's so much information out there. It's my understanding, and Mark Edwards and his group, thank God for them, they did a fantastic job in getting and elevating this awareness. But I think they were primarily focused on metals and the copper and lead where they should be. And then what I started to get concerned about is, with the acidity, alkalinity, no one really knew what was in that river water, and what were they spiking it with? What were they treating it with? And my fear all along was what's called as trihalomethanes. And I won't get too scientific or wonky or what do you say, but that, on the Water Defense website, we have a toxicology analysis from one of my toxicology advisors that goes into the details. But my concern all along was that they were spiking this water with massive amounts of chlorine and other chemicals that we're not even certain all the chemicals they were treating the water with. And sure enough, we showed consistent detection of these chemicals called methylene chloride, chloroform, and other trihalomethanes in 3 homes, bathtubs, showers, and sinks. And Jack, here the interesting thing here is, or the concerning thing is that the immediate concern is that drinking water replace that, and that is fantastic. But what people need to step back and concern about is what you're bathing in every day. And you don't bathe for a split second. And we monitor the water with obviously the conventional grab sample split second testing, and also what we call cumulative testing. So what we found, chloroform is a human carcinogen, and it does enter through the skin. And the most alarming things I continue to be concerned about is there's no evidence that the state is doing any thorough or detailed testing for the full spectrum of these chemicals, especially the ones that can enter your skin in the bath or the shower.
I would think that before they made the switch from the Detroit water to the Flint River water, the MDEQ, the City of Flint water plant would have a pretty good idea of the chemical makeup of the water. Are you saying that they didn't know the chemical makeup of the Flint River water? They flipped the switch and they said, we're going to run it through some filters and hope for the best.
Well, I absolutely share your opinion and what you said. And I continue to look for, and, since they would love to see the publicly available data, I would think that they knew all the chemicals in that river before they made the switch. I would think that they knew all the chemicals and levels they were treating the water with. And I would think that they would have enough data points statistically to declare the water safe for health and human safety before they flip the switch. Now, I would think all that exists, but I have yet to see that it does. And if anybody is aware of this information, I would love to be able to review that data with the experts that support me in the work I do at Water Defense.
So you are an expert, water defense, and you're saying that there is no public record that really shows the chemical makeup of the Flint River water.
Correct. And I'm for the first to say, unless I missed it, we're inquiring with the state, we're inquiring with the media, and everywhere we can. That data has to be there. Now, if it's there and somebody's watching this, please provide it to me. Or, I have yet to see the data or any evidence that shows that testing was done before the switch was flipped from Detroit to Flint water.
And when we're talking about tests, we're talking about tests for heavy metals and for the basic chemical makeup of the water.
Correct. Now, there's about 33 metals of concern that we look for, including mercury. And again, I've been in over 60 disasters, and that there's something unique about every one, unfortunately. And on this one, it's the lack of any data whatsoever. And then you had all these major decisions made. We can usually uncover baseline data, but I haven't been able to find it. And it's not just 33 metals, and there's a couple hundred other chemicals known as volatiles and semi-volatile chemicals. And volatile and some of these other chemicals, like chloroform, can enter your body through your skin, and they're called volatiles because you breathe them into your lungs.
TTHM's volatile chemical?
Yeah, the trihalomethane's a volatile, methylene chloride's a volatile, chloroform is a volatile. And, it's just, the fact that we're even detecting any level of, the bottom line is no human being should be bathing, drinking, or exposed to water with any lead, with any chloroform. It is that simple. And when people start mincing words about safe levels of toxins in water, that's where I find it unacceptable. Of that, in today's society, as advanced as we are we really going, when those that are out there are trying to say that there's a safe level of chloroform or a safe level of lead, well, it's my position that there is no such thing as a safe level for any amount of these chemicals in the water.
CDC says no safe level of lead. It has to be 0. Yet, because municipalities, the real world, they can't give us 0, they kind of fudge the numbers a little bit. But of course, people aren't the same. People have compromised immune systems. People are different ages. 80-year-old isn't going to be as healthy as a 16-year-old. So, there's this gray area where we all know the safest level is 0 for lead, yet we can't reach 0. So they play with the numbers. 5 parts per billion, 15 parts per billion.
Well,
and we have to live with it. And they're even talking about readjusting those numbers, redoing the lead and copper rule at the EPA to bring those levels up higher, because the municipalities cannot meet those numbers. Is that right, or am I off?
I understand what you said, but I could not disagree more. And one of the things is every human being is different, and you bring out whether you're an infant, a pregnant mother, a male, and a variety of ages. Everyone's going to react differently to these chemicals and have different symptoms. And if it's really true that the EPA is recommending bringing these levels up, then the EPA is doing a great disservice to the citizens and the taxpayers of the United States of America, because just like the best available, we're not using a rotary phone for this right now. We're using the best available technology. And we basically have, if what you're saying is correct with the EPA, we have the EPA and state agencies saying, use a rotary phone when you could use an iPhone. It's like, if you and I got in a wreck today and we refuse to use our cell phone to call 911 and we go knocking on doors to find a rotary phone. That's the best analogy I can give you. And with all the great technologies out there for removing contaminants from water, I just can't. It is totally unacceptable to have federal agency like the EPA and any state agency trying to raise the level of cancer-causing chemicals and other dangerous chemicals. It's just unacceptable. Unacceptable. I'm sorry to repeat myself. I just can't say unacceptable enough.
I'll send you the link, and I'll post the link to the meeting that Dr. Edwards, Dr. Mona, Leanne Walters all attended back in December, where they gave testimony to the EPA suggesting that they not raise the level of lead and copper. But of course, the lead and copper rule, I don't think has been changed in 25 years. They're supposed to change it every 7 years. It's totally crazy. EPA does not equal protecting public health. It's crazy. It's crazy. These people are paid to not do their job. Their job is to protect health, protect public health, yet they don't. And you can take a look at, I'll post it in the description below, the testimonies given to the Federal Oversight Committee last month, where they're just screaming and yelling at the person that represented the EPA. And he said, we'll get back to you. I'm sorry. And it's like, but 25 years, you're supposed to do it. It's the law. 7 years. You redo your lead and copper rule. They haven't done it in 25 years. These agencies, it's incredible. It's incredible. They're run amok. Anyway, well, your comments.
Jack, you raise a really, really important issue right here. And why is none of the standards are up to date. None of the technologies are up to date. And this is happening in today's society. It's unacceptable. And irrespective of anybody's political beliefs, leanings, whether you're pro or anti-fracking, that's all irrelevant. You are seeing the result with the EPA of too much money in lobbying interest in politics. The key here is for people like you and other great journalists and those in the media to follow the money. Because I focus on water contamination. We need people like you and those in the media to focus on the political contamination. We need people like you and more of you to do what I do for water to do in the political environment. Because if you follow that money, that's where the contamination is. And there's just, again, there's no acceptable reason for raising the level of allowable lead in or anything else. I mean, if you just think about that logically, it just it should really cause everyone to be in an uproar.
If you think of it logically, that you have industry that poisons their population for profit, that is not sustainable. And yet that is exactly the treadmill that we find ourselves in 2016, that companies, whole industries, billions of dollars, billion-dollar industries are based on poisoning the population for profit. And so they weigh in the political arena, how much money are we going to lose if we protect the people? Well, we can't do it today. We'll have to kick it down the road, kick it down the road. Because whenever you weigh profits against people, profits always win in the short term. Of course, the long term, here we are, we're living with our grandparents' issue, which was they decided it was a great idea to use lead water pipes and also to put lead in our gasoline. And we're still living with lead in our gasoline. Every private plane in the United States uses leaded gasoline. And they knew that 50 years ago. It's crazy. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. Tell us about the water bug. What's the water bug?
The water bug is something that Water Defense developed based on an open cell elastomeric foam technology. Simply stated, what the water bug does, it mimics the way a human being or life encounters water. If you're a fish in the river, you're not in the water for a split second. If you're a child, a mother, man, human, animal, bathing, showering, you're not in the water for a split second. And the standards in this country are based on these split second grab samples, which are okay. And if you detect something, there's a problem. But if you get a non-detect, this goes back to the fundamental problem you mentioned about the standards are not updated. Well, we don't encounter the water for a split second. So why are we relying solely on testing the water for a split second? And furthermore, these standards assume that water and contamination is always in equilibrium. Well, if you're taking water samples for a split second, you're going to get varying results. Unless you have a closed loop system or literally a closed container, water is never in a steady state or in equilibrium, especially when it's contaminated or compromised. So what we did at Water Defense is we developed our own technology and our own testing based on my experience in all these disasters and what I learned. And we're trying to bring the EPA and the state agencies to the modern era and get them away. I mean, we're basically trying to bring when it comes to water testing, the EPA and the state agencies, to a large part, are still using rotary phones for water testing. We're trying to bring them up to, smartphones with testing, and we use the instant grab sample testing too, and we think it's important to monitor for exposure over time. And you can see that is what's going on in Flint, Michigan. Everyone's you need to see what these people are being exposed to every day as they are bathing and showering in water. And I have yet to be able to find anybody that can take a shower or bath for a split second.
In your opinion, right now, the water is not safe to bathe in Flint?
Well, number one, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a toxicologist, and I refer you to the reports. And everyone has to make their own decision and see their own medical doctor. I can tell you, if it were me in Flint, if I was a resident of Flint and could afford it, I would not be bathing, showering there, and probably move from my house until things got fixed. But unfortunately, the citizens in Flint probably don't have that option. And that the concerning thing is where is the state? Where is the city of Flint? Any family, any human that is affected by this water, the state, the city, the EPA should be doing its job in testing for the full spectrum of chemicals on a weekly basis with an independent lab, not the state lab, but a certified independent lab. And they should be in a constant dialogue. And if, and then the families, they should be paying for the families' medical bills and doctors to go get expert advice.
But they're not doing that. They, as you say, consult with your doctor. Well, doctors aren't free, and the people of Flint are below the poverty line. So if you don't have free medical care, you're just going to rely on your information from the press for free information.
Yeah, and it's really, and then again, this may be a little off subject, and I want to make a point here. Can you, all the talk, and again, irrespective of people's political stance, which is not relevant to this conversation, Democrats, Republicans, you hear everybody talking about this. If this were an ISIS attack, can you imagine if somebody or a radical person from within the United States or outside the United States poisoned a water system? What would the reaction would be a lot different, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be here. We have a poisoning of the water system. And where is Homeland Security? Homeland Security should be immediately in there and set up, like every 5 miles. They could set up big trailers and have doctors flown in, experts attending to this. If this were approached like any other disaster, or God forbid a terrorist attack compromising the water, this is the same approach. And Homeland Security, to me, means protecting the homeland. Why isn't Homeland Security involved in approaching this like they would any other attack or compromised poisoning of a community?
Well, the crazy thing is that they covered it up, and they're continuing to cover it up. I mean, we didn't even know about Legionnaires Disease. And all of a sudden, kaboom, they're talking about Legionnaires Disease, and they knew about it. I mean, that's the issue here. Not that it was done, but that these people in positions of protecting public health and protecting the public knew, but they didn't say a word. And it was channel of command. They knew it from a low level and they knew it at a high level, yet they didn't. So there was an attack on this population and they didn't say a thing. They just continued to allow people to drink the water, not people, pregnant women, infants. You just go down the line, elderly, 90-year-old grandmothers and grandfathers. Continue to allow them to think that what was coming out of their tap was safe. That's the crazy thing. There was an attack and nobody told them about it. Republicans, Democrats, anybody in public service, they're outraged. But of course, what are they going to do about it? Everybody knows that money is going to have to be spent, but they're like playing politics with the money. And who is going to fix the problem? The people that didn't say anything are going to come in and fix the problem? They want to fix the problem. They want to show that they're competent. They want to do their job. They want to show that they're doing their job, but they fail in their job. If you fail in your job, you're fired. That's kind of the way it goes, but they don't want to be fired. They want to keep doing their job. They want to still keep their positions of power. It's crazy. Let me tell you, it's crazy.
Well,
anyway, we got off subject.
To be treated what you're describing is negligence, and that's why that letting the data lead the dialogue and what we're finding in the water. We're also starting to test some water heaters where we found 2,000 parts per billion in the sediment coming out of lithium coming out of a water heater, which is concerning also. And that this has been going on so long, that contamination went somewhere. And, that's why forensically going in and looking at people's water heaters and the sediment and what's flowing out of the sediment from the bottom of the water heater will be indicative of the full spectrum dangerous chemicals that people have been exposed to. And Jack, I think that when they flipped the switch and went to the Flint River water was sometime in 2014, right?
2014, it was April 25th, 2014. That's when they flipped the switch. Yep.
So you're talking about what, almost 2 years of this, and the evidence is going to be in the bottom of those water heaters. From the people I'm talking to, and some of those include some of the professors from some of the universities I work with.
So I'm showing the video of you taking a sample from the water heater. Can you talk about how you collect the samples from the water heater here in this clip?
Yeah, what I did is you open the relief valve on the bottom, and you obviously have to be very careful in doing that. But that water just flows out, and that's from the sediment or the bottom of the water heater. And for those affected in the community, to test what's in the sediment of that water heater will be indicative, potentially, of what's been accumulating for 2 years and settling, especially when it comes to metals, what's been settling at the bottom of that water heater.
So you're saying that the last 2 years of water that have been flowing through residents' homes, there's a history, and that history is in the bottom of their water heater.
Correct.
So heavy metals, if you had heavy metals flowing through your residence, would those heavy metals go down to the bottom of your water heater?
Well,
do they get flushed out?
Well, I'm working with a variety of experts, and we need to study this further, but there seems to be a consensus that the heavy metals will settle in the water heater. That's why there's a lot of interest in forensically and in gathering evidence from the water heaters. And we only tested the sediment of one water heater. In my opinion, every affected home and every water heater should be tested.
Now, when I flush my water heater, when my element goes out, I go in there and there's sediment at the bottom. In order to get a good reading, would you go into these water heaters, get rid of the water, and then go into that sediment that's at the bottom of the water heater? Would that give you a better reading?
That's a good question. What we would prefer to do is, first of all, gather a wide variety of data here, and drain the water off the sediment, get that as a reading, and then, like you said, get this, analyze the sediment itself for what it contains.
This sounds expensive.
Well, to me,
how do you get your funding? If you go, door to door and say, I want to check your water heater, and you do it over a period of time, where do you get your funding? I mean, where do you see this all going in terms of funding?
Yeah, well, what we do at Water Defense, we obviously don't have an infinite budget, but we have a budget, and we've done what we could with Flint, and we're continuing to try to raise more funds so we can go in there and gather more data. But the state could do this. It would be the full spectrum of tests on a house is about $500, and I take issue with what's the cost of it. To me, there is, for $500 per home, considering women, children, pregnant women, and in health and human safety, I think that's the least the state can do. Maybe the state can fire some of the incompetent people that are responsible for this to pay for the testing.
Well, we're not talking just about homes. We're talking about apartment buildings as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in apartment, if you look at apartment buildings, you raise a good point, Jay. And to a certain degree, if you test the water heater in an apartment building, instead of testing 200 units, you could just test the water heaters or one or a variety of them. So there's a way. It's in some of this, it's working smart, thinking logically, knowing how to approach the disaster. So this can be very cost efficient. So I don't accept the argument that it's too expensive to do testing. That's not, the citizens of Flint deserve virtually unlimited testing as far as I'm concerned, based on what I've seen that's been done to them.
Well, you talk about the state, how about the feds? How about the federal government coming in and doing the tests? But again, the people of Flint, their confidence has been shaken. They don't trust anybody that's coming in from the government because they've been lied to, and they continue to be lied to.
Well,
so it has to be independent. The only people they trust are Virginia Tech. That's it. If Virginia Tech says it's okay, and Virginia Tech right now, Mark Edwards, he is the Flint folk hero that got us to where we are, as well as Dr. Mona. You know, they function as a team. It took a village here. Dr. Edwards says it's safe to bathe. It's safe to shower with the current water, Flint water. That's what Dr. Edwards is saying today. And you're saying I wouldn't shower at all.
If it were me, I would not. Now, I don't know. I've been trying to reach out to Dr. Edwards directly. I'm not aware of Dr. Edwards saying that. So is he saying that based, I mean, has he looked for the full gamut of chemical? I think Dr. Mona and Dr. Edwards they're absolute heroes for bringing this to the attention. But so Dr. Edwards has said it's safe to bathe?
Yep. I can send you the link. I'll post the link at the bottom. A number of interviews over the last 2 weeks. He has said, don't drink the water, use the filters, but it's okay to bathe. And then they came up with the report, I think a week ago, infants shouldn't be bathed in the water, but everybody else, go for it. It's okay.
Well, I can give you my thinking on this. I'm very cautious. First of all, I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't be making medical recommendations or bathing. All I know is the toxicologists that I work with that are very well trained don't share the opinion of Dr. Edwards. And I think Dr. Edwards is a hero and has done a great job. And I don't know. My questions for Dr. Edwards, if I can get a hold of him directly, will be to have him review all of our data and ask him if he has input from toxicologists. And I would love to I'd love to even have a Google Hangout with Dr. Edwards and the toxicologists and have more of a public education forum on this. It's desperately needed.
That's what we've got on our list of things to do, to get Dr. Edwards and a couple of other scientists to come on a Google Hangout and talk about these issues, scientist to scientist, a scientific forum of people that do this on a daily basis. But in terms of, is it safe to bathe using the water, on this Thursday, on the Steve Harvey show, there is a panel of experts. There is a doctor that was flown in from Washington, D.C., and she is going to state that it is not safe to bathe in this water, to shower in this water, that lead does come in low doses through the skin. So there you go. This Thursday, don't miss it. Steve Harvey, the morning show. I'll post a link at the bottom of this video for people to go to the page to watch it.
If you could get the water defense testing data and the toxicology summaries on our website to Steve Harvey or any of these people, I mean, it's good to hear that doctor is going to be on that show and she's making that recommendation. So I will not miss that show.
Well, the person I wanted to get you in contact with was Melissa Mays, because she traveled on bus to go to the Steve Harvey show. Melissa Mays is everywhere. She's in Washington, D.C. She's in Detroit. She's marching the streets with Jesse Jackson. Melissa Mays is like the octopus here. She's been at it from day one. Well, back in January of 2015, that's when she became outraged, where she started to go public with this. So she's unfortunately under the weather at this particular point in time, or she would have been on the panel. But, she'll watch the clips that I make of this video, and she'll get you connected.
Yeah, well, I want you to know, I mean, I'm available at any time as long as
What,
I'm not traveling or flying. I'm available at any time to get back on it. This is a very important subject. It can be a little bit complicated, but uh, I can speak on behalf of myself and Water Defense. We are here to do anything and everything we can help to support the people of the community of Flint. Anything at any time.
where are you located?
I live on Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Not that I'm here that much, because unfortunately there continuing to be a lot of contamination. Again, and I'm told I'm the only human being that's been to every major contamination event or disaster since BP, and it's now 62 with Flint, and that's in 5 years.
In 5 years, you're going to be on a plane Wednesday going to California. What's in California?
I'm going out there for a variety of events, and actually in California, part of our prior work is it's follow-up work. There was we were the subject of a front page Los Angeles Times article about using oil wastewater to irrigate crops and organic crops in the Central Valley. And there's a lot of work we're doing in California about, potentially compromised water, and again, no standards, and using to irrigate, tangerines, grapes, almonds, and so on. And I'm out there to do a lot of follow-up work on those specific issues.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's totally crazy. We had Dr. David Lewis on the show a couple of months ago, and he's talking about sewage sludge. He worked for the EPA for 31 years, and he got the axe. He became, quote, a whistleblower because he was focused on public health. And he started with water quality control, and he moved into sewage sludge. He was at the very beginning when the EPA was started. And it's crazy what they're doing with taking our industry hazardous waste and dumping it into our sewage systems, and then taking that and producing fertilizer with it and putting it onto our agriculture crops. And the heavy metals, the toxins, are off the chart compared when you dilute it in water. And that's the world we're living in. They give it to us on the land and through the water. And there's no, and people are surprised at the level of illnesses that we have, especially cancer. You don't have to go too far to figure out what the issue is. Hopefully everybody's got rabbit foots, because I think that's the only thing that's protecting us from this exposure, is just blind luck of the draw.
Well, yeah, and what you described, you covered a lot of ground with that statement, and it's a contamination of the state agencies, of federal agencies, again with lobbying dollars for all in the name of profit. And it's time to start thinking about protecting health and human safety. But one of the things that's common with me, as much as I go into these disaster situations, some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life were like the Brown family in Flint, a few of the plumbers, and I'm really encouraged at the way all people from all walks of life are coming together in Flint. And I don't want anybody to think I'm very positive that we are starting a very good revolution here, and we're going to arm people with the ability to do their own testing. And we get millions of people calling for the right thing to do here. We got to remember that these state agencies and federal agencies and the EPA, they work for us, and we need to bring millions of people together. And this is in demand change. The power is with the people here, and I don't want anybody to think that I am. I'm very optimistic that we're going to solve this problem, but it's going to be bringing people together in a very positive, powerful way, and stop what I call the contamination of the government agencies and the elected officials that we put into power to protect us.
Before we leave, can you talk about fracking water? Because there is some talk that this Flint River crisis has some connection to fracking and fracking water. are you testing the Flint River for fracking contaminants?
We tested, again, I need to gather more data and I can't draw any definitive conclusions right now. But as far as the Flint River itself, high levels of copper, high levels of manganese, but that, that's all we found at this point. However, we don't know what the pH is, and there's a whole complicated thing with these metals and other chemicals, depending on whether it's alkaline or acidic, whether the metals are in solution or in the sediment. But we plan to go back there, and we need to get sediment samples from that river, and we need more data. We need more data points from the river. But from the limited testing, again, I have not seen anything that suggests fracking chemicals or oil drilling chemicals in the water. But I haven't done enough testing to draw that conclusion. So we can't draw that conclusion. And I really like to speak to what I know. There's still a lot more I don't know. After having been in all the 60 disasters, I know that everything is different. And I have heard some of the same background that you referenced about some of this being tied to fracking and use of the water and all that. But we just need to gather more evidence and let the data lead the dialogue.
Okay. Now you had a couple of slides. Do you want to share those slides with us?
Yeah,
before we leave?
Yes. If you can see that, that's a slide. Can you see that?
Yeah. Oops. Yes, we do. We see the slide. Oh, and it's full screen too. Yeah, we see it. Okay.
Which one do you see? There's 3 of them. They're all on my screen, but I don't know which one you see. There's 3. There's one of the Flint River testing. I'm on that right now, the Flint River testing, where we find high levels of copper and manganese. And again, that's only from 1 round of testing. That's what jumped out at us.
And you're showing the little water bug.
Correct.
The green. What's it made out of?
It's made out of it's made out of the same oil byproduct that is used in injection needles and IV bags, called ethylene methylacrylate. It's used in the medical field every day, believe it or not, to save lives. And that's why when I kind of invented this technology as a result of my water defense work, and try to choose something that was used in the medical field every day, and that it basically attracts chemicals and contaminants like a magnet and repels clear water. So we've kind of developed and perfected this over time. And it's designed to test the water the way we're exposed to it as humans. For example, we don't bathe in the water for a split second. And that's why we're doing a 30-minute test to see what accumulates over time or what exposure is over time.
Now, did you put weights on this so it would go to the bottom of the river, or did it just float on top?
We put weights on it, and that's in that's in the 6-minute video summary we did. We put weights on it, and we anchored it down in the water column. However, we were not able, because of the weather conditions, the sediment, or basically shoveling the bottom of the river, because we don't know what the pH was that day. We need to go back there and get the sediment and find out what's really in the bottom of that river.
Are you going to get different testings for different months of the year?
Ideally, that's what we'd like to do. Absolutely.
When are you returning to Flint?
Right now, that is in the process of being scheduled. I would say it's going to be in the next 3 weeks.
Now, I was told that you may be having a town hall meeting in Flint.
Yeah, well, there are a variety of scheduled town hall meetings, and I've been asked potentially to sit on a panel, take questions, give some recommendations, and I'm happy to offer my support in however the community of Flint and those working on the ground there want to utilize me. So again, it's being scheduled, and as soon as I know more, I'll let you know.
Okay. You want to go to the next slide?
Yeah, and this is the next slide shows the the bathtub, shower, sink testing in 3 homes and 1 hotel with 4 pictures and how we did the testing. And again, on our website, concerning levels of chloroform, methylene chloride, trihalomethanes all detected, and then we had 16 parts per billion, which was detected in in the bathtub in the NBC and in the Brown House, where NBC has been the subject of a lot of NBC news coverage on a national level.
Do you want to share that slide, because we just have the first slide up?
Huh. I thought I did. Let me see if I can do that. Now, do you see it?
I think we're going to come back to you, and then we're going to come back to you, and then you click again, and we're going to see the slide. I think this is how we did it in the green room.
Okay. Let me try this again. Now, do you see it?
Yep. So there's the water. Are they all green?
Yeah. Well, yes. And I want to point out, when we could detect a smell, the camera guy was with, and I, got a little bit lightheaded. It's not anything that we're not used to in these disasters. But I want to point out a very important point here is that some of the most dangerous chemicals here are clear, colorless, and relatively odorless. Although, chloroform tends not to be so odorless, but just because we pull something out and there's no dark oil on it, even when it's an oil disaster, does not mean that there's not clear, colorless, odorless, cancerous chemicals.
Why is the water blue or green in the bathtub?
Well, that may be the lighting, that may be the lighting and from the camera. Is the water, was a little bit hazy, but it wasn't, and we detected a kind of a smell to it and suspected some volatiles, but the water was not green, and that may just be the lighting or the way it's coming across in the pictures.
So this is the water that's coming into your hotel room?
The hotel is the upper left. It's where I have my cursor right now. That is a hotel bathroom. Where you check into the hotel, they'll tell you that that don't drink the water, but it's okay to bathe and shower, like the video. And we're just asking the question, if it's not okay to drink, why is it okay to bathe and shower? And why is it okay to bathe and shower in when they're not even looking for the full spectrum of potential dangerous chemicals?
Now, when you check into the hotel, they say it's okay to bathe and shower, but no longer than 5 minutes. Get in and get out.
They don't say that. I mean, theoretically, they should say, well, you make a very good point. They should say it's okay to bathe and shower, just take one for a split second.
That's right.
I mean, that's what they should be saying if they want to be consistent here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess they're opening themselves to a lawsuit. Somebody could say, I caught something because I stayed in this hotel and it came from the water because I took a 25-minute shower.
Yeah, and by the way, the local CBS Channel 5 affiliate interviewed me on Thursday. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but they did that interview is on the Water Defense YouTube and website. And they had interviewed a resident of the community who I've yet to meet that was having a rash and symptoms on his back. And now that we've identified some of these other chemicals, they actually, these people that are getting sick, instead of that are being dismissed, it appears as though it's real, and we're helping to be able to explain why they possibly are having skin problems, having medical issues.
What are some of the chemicals that creates rashes?
Well, these chemicals, everybody's different, and again, if you go to the toxicology report on our website, I don't have memorized all of them. I mean, everything from your internal organs to possible skin rashes, and again, depending on every human being, your symptoms will be different when you're exposed to these. Some humans may not show any external evidence or anything, but some humans that don't show any immediate health effects may all of a sudden come down with cancer in 2 to 3 years. That's the issue here.
And you're talking about humans. Humans have pets, and there are other animals in our kingdom.
That's right. And something I see in the disasters I've been in, for example, the Navajo Nation, that acid mining spill, I've been on the ground out there, and we're doing a lot of work there. And that's very similar to Flint. The people in the community desperately need help and support. And what I learned out in the Navajo Nation is the cows, the cattle, the horses, even frogs. There was a mass exodus of frogs from the contaminated river, just throwing themselves in the street. And in a lot of ways, animals know. They have another sense. Animals know when there's an issue. And, I hear stories of some animals in Flint too, not wanting to drink water or be around water. So animals sometimes just understand things that we humans don't.
They can sense what is poison and not. Us humans, we rely on the EPA. We rely on our leaders to tell us what is safe and what is not safe. We don't have that innate ability. Well, we actually do with smell, taste. If it tastes funny, if it smells funny, and it's water, we kind of say, that's not going to be for us. I talked to a resident last week. I'm going to have her on the show probably today. She's a photographer, and she was talking about last year, 2015, when the water was coming out of her tap, and it smelled a little funny. But she read the reports, what was coming from the local media. Local media bears some responsibility to this disaster, I believe. And the media was saying the water was safe. They were beating that drum from the government. And so what she did was she had some fizzy tablets that she put in her water that masked the smell so she could drink it. Again, another crazy story. As you know, you've got water that's coming out of your tap and it smells, but they say it's safe. So the only way that you're going to drink it is you're going to put some Kool-Aid in it.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It makes no logical sense, in fact.
Animals would not do that.
That's correct.
But humans, we're a different lot. We think we're smarter than the average bear, except when it comes to poisoned water. Then the bears are smarter than we are. Would that be a true assessment?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I can't summarize it any better than you can.
We can probably surmise everything through cartoons from our childhood, right?
Yes.
Do you have one more slide that you want to share?
Yeah, let me see here.
So what is your advice for the residents of Flint, knowing what you know?
Again, if they're most likely not in a situation where they can leave the community, and unfortunately, based on what I've seen, you've got to stand up for yourself, and you've got to get in the face of the elected officials that represent you, and the state agencies and the federal EPA that are there to serve your best interests and no one else's, and band together with as many people as possible. And call for action. That's the only way, unfortunately, I see this problem being resolved, because these chemicals have got to be filtered out of the water somehow.
What are we looking at?
Oh, you're looking at here is the testum of the bottom of the water heater, where we found 2,000 parts per billion of lithium. And again, the toxicology report is available on our website, and that's just one water heater. Obviously, we need to do a lot more testing on a lot more homes and a lot more water heaters to draw any definitive conclusions either way.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? If not, I'll cut you loose.
Just thank you for the extensive interview, and keep doing the great work, and hopefully you can elevate this, and I appreciate it. We need more people like you that will spend an hour asking detailed questions, and because this is complicated, but health and human safety are at stake here, and people's futures are at stake. So I wish all the media would allow a lot more time for a thorough discussion like you did. So thank you, and have a great day.
All right, Scott Smith with Water Defense. Thanks so much. We'll see you
Okay.
next time.